On behalf of our National Executive Committee, wanted to also say that we aim to communicate better. We aim to elevate the standard in communicating. And where our own comrades have done the work they've done, we aim to just move from good to great, because that essentially, I think, continually striving for high performance can only be the right thing to do. Having said that, keeping a collegial relationship with members of the media, we're not here to leak stories. We're here to communicate the message of the ANC using the best ethical standards as possible. Having said that, let me ask my brother, Bulemabe, just to have a few words as you transition us into this new role, and then I will invite the Secretary General to speak. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sis Mahlengi and Secretary General, Comrade Hope, Comrade Vooks, and members of the media.
You are going to find that they are quite interesting members of the Fourth Estate. They will do things that push you to say other things at times, but it's in their very nature. And thanks a lot to all of you. You have allowed us to grow in this role. You have given us all the support. You covered the ANC without fear or favor. And everything else you said was just about you conducting your own trade as members of the Fourth Estate. So continue doing the same, even with Ous Mahlengi, with Comrade Hope, with Comrade Vooks, supporting the office of the Secretary General. Thanks a lot. Well, we are planning to have something on Friday. We will be able to communicate through our relevant platforms. Thanks.
Thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to invite the Secretary General of the ANC.
Thank you, Comrade Mahlengi, and for that handover with Comrade Pule and Comrade Hope and Comrade Vukani. Comrade TSG Nomvula will be joining us. The second TSG will not be with us here today because of other commitments. Members of the Fourth Estate, disciplined forces of the progressive movement and our glorious movement, led by the African National Congress, fellow South Africans, thank you for taking the time to be with us today to receive from us the outcomes of our National Executive Committee and the Lekgotla. We meet today and re-offer our condolences to the families and friends who lost their loved ones in the gruesome killing in Gqeberha. We are pleased with the progress the Minister of Police has announced. As you will see, as the African National Congress, we are changing gear and we have taken decisive steps to address energy crisis and build party unity. This includes steps to address the ongoing energy crisis. This follows the inaugural meeting of the National Executive Committee, which met from the 27th to the 28th January 2023 at SLN Park in Ekurhuleni. The meeting follows the 55th National Conference of the organization, which was convened between 16 and 20th December 2022 at the Nazareth Expo Center in Johannesburg, and officially concluded on January 5th, 2023 at the Imvelo Safari Lodge in Mangaung. Consequently, among others, the NEC processed the resolution of the conference, which, in line with the 2023 theme, called for decisive action to advance the people's interest and renew our movement. The successful National Executive meeting was also preceded by several consultations by President Cyril Ramaphosa and Secretary General Fikile Mbalula with opposition parties, experts, and interested parties on the energy crisis, which President Ramaphosa characterized as a house on fire that requires all of government and society to act akin to a code red situation. The engagements included an energy dialogue hosted on January 25th at the University of Johannesburg. The National Executive meeting was also followed by an extended NEC Lekgotla from 29th to 30th January, which had a special focus on the ongoing energy crisis and adopted a program of action which focuses on accelerated actions to resolve the energy crisis to end load shedding, specific initiatives and programs to intensify the ANC's renewal, a bold program to mobilize social partners around economic reconstruction and recovery to increase job creation, steps to improve the delivery of basic services, initiatives to strengthen fight against crime, specific actions to build better Africa and the world. In solving the energy crisis, the NEC Lekgotla encouraged the President of the Republic to declare a national state of disaster, which will also require that the ANC reconnects with our communities and society, as the ANC does not have the monopoly of ideas. We therefore call on all of society to work with us in progressively solving the challenge, since it affects all of us, in particular the poor and the working class. Lekgotla directed Cabinet to study in detail the obstacles in delivering infrastructure, vandalism, and counter-revolutionary tendencies, with a view to increase infrastructure investment while strengthening the capability and capacity of the state. Presenting to the Lekgotla, Comrade Pravin Gordhan, who is also the Minister for Public Enterprises, said an additional 46,000 megawatts was required to be added to the 26 megawatts current capacity. In trying to build and maintain capacity, key concerns remain the vandalism, which has posed a risk, further compounded by the fact that 6 power stations are not in operation. Consequently, the National Chairperson in his presentation advocated for the improvement of the performance of ESCOM existing power stations, whilst upgrading and expanding current capacities and capabilities in the context of the Energy Action Plan and Just Energy Transition as proposed by the National Energy Crisis Committee. The National Chairperson, in his capacity as Minister of Mineral and Energy, also made an important presentation in terms of our interventions. This plan will be bolstered by lessons drawn by the Lekgotla from the energy dialogue, presentations from technical experts and communities, as well as international best practices from India and Germany, among others. Lekgotla also called for the acceleration of the plans of the committee such that there is no load shedding by the end of the year. In meeting this objective, the NEC agreed that all measures should be taken to protect, rebuild, and save ESCOM. The NEC Lekgotla, in line with the presentation of Comrade Enoch Godongana, noted that this will require a reprioritization of the already pressured national budget, which has been impacted on by global dynamics such as the performance of China and USA markets, as well as the conflict in Ukraine. The Lekgotla also noted that the budget and the potential to raise capital has negatively been impacted upon by the municipal debt to Eskom. This, together with national debt of 4.8 trillion, as well as the progressive social wage, which amounts to 58% of the budget, has made the budgeting maneuvering space quite tight. Lekgotla noted that there are billions which are projected to be underspent and called for the reprioritization of funds to address the crisis. This can be complemented by the redesign of existing grants to optimize and aggregate infrastructure financing and capacities. Additionally, consideration should be given for the restructuring of the Eskom debt and the financing thereof. Thus, amongst other steps to be taken is the incentivizing and subsidization of solar rooftop panels for households and businesses, as well as accelerated maintenance, securing and building of the energy infrastructure. This can be complemented by measures such as renewable energy supply and standby generation, which can also be diesel, petrol and battery based in the telecommunications and broadcast services, as this can also enhance key social services such as education and training. Further short-term actions include the reconfiguration of government such that the areas of energy security is better aligned. Lekgotla also called for acceleration of the work of the National Energy Crisis Committee by utilizing the state of disaster legislation to bring about a multi-sphere command center to better manage the crisis. Additionally, the current plan requires deepening such that it responds to the immediate challenges and further promote prioritization of maintenance, management and security of Eskom power plants, management of load shedding such that it minimizes the impact on the economy and the provision of basic services including water, mitigation of the decision by the National Energy Regulator of South Africa regarding Eskom tariffs on people and the economy, implementation of measures to manage electricity demand, including the installation of solar heaters and panels and other energy efficient systems which should be incentivized, expediting of the procurement of emergency power, relief and support to poor households, as well as small and medium-sized enterprises, kept the outward migration of technical and management skills and capabilities of Eskom, whilst mobilizing further skills in areas such as engineering, support of the just energy transition as a long-term program. To complement this, the ANC, the Alliance and government will mobilize society and deliver a mass communications campaign directed at demand management and energy saving measures such as switching off geysers. This will be reinforced by ANC structures through regional general councils who will be empowered to communicate on energy saving and security measures as a contribution to sustain economic growth. In facilitating vibrant economic growth and resilient infrastructure, the government will implement mega and catalytic infrastructure projects, which will include new cities as well as constructing government buildings, maintenance, as well as integrated transport corridors. The economic reconstruction and recovery plan will continue to guide such projects. However, Lekgotla noted that in growing the economy, extraordinary investment levels, co-investing and the local economic development will be required. Therefore, Lekgotla, in the context of social contracting, called for prioritization of programs to end load shedding and restore energy security, programs to increase infrastructure investment, including water, roads, and rail infrastructure, programs that promote industrialization, and programs to end corruption, crime, and better protect our economic infrastructure. Lekgotla noted the success recorded by the investment conferences, but called for better reporting and communication of the gains made by government in this regard. In addressing the transformation of the economy, the NEC agreed to pay special attention to curbing the effects of rising costs of living, whilst creating an inclusive economy that works in the interest of all South Africans, especially women. This, in line with the developmental state paradigm, will include considered and progressive reforms in the state revenue, tax, and industrialization, with an emphasis on agro-processing and development of specialized markets such as cannabis and creative sector and tourism. This and other sectors stand to benefit from global trade and African continental free trade area. The anticipated growth should be supported by key development finance institutions, DFIs, and domestic financiers. In transforming and democratizing financing, the Lekgotla also called for transformation of the Post Bank into the envisaged State Bank. In considering the improvement in the delivery of basic services and maintaining infrastructure, Lekgotla recalled that the ANC has adopted the district development model to enhance the speed and quality of service delivery. The DDM will be complemented by the establishment of local government forums. In providing political oversight to service delivery, Lekgotla directed the Secretary General to establish a delivery command center in the Secretary General's office. The NEC further identified 42 priority municipalities which require urgent actions, where, among other, service delivery interventions must be expedited. To support this, the NEC will deploy NEC members to districts and strategic municipalities in line with the district development model. In supporting this and other municipalities, the ANC will adopt a 15-month local government resuscitation strategy, which will, among others, focus on a skills audit as well as accelerated delivery in water and sanitation, integrated transport, and expanded social safety net, which includes the national health insurance. Given that such a program will require resourcing, the NEC also directed government to review the municipal fiscal model, including the division of revenue between national, provincial, and local spheres of government. The NEC further noted the sporadic and increasing acts of racism that continue to manifest themselves in the country, and agreed to develop programs and campaigns while intensifying existing interventions to combat and eradicate racism. These acts include activities of the Cape Independence Party and the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape, who continue to resist efforts to achieve spatial transformation in the Western Cape, as well as the continued existence of the racist Orania. The NEC acknowledged the preponderance of young people in our population and the ongoing challenge of youth unemployment in our country. To this end, the NEC called on government to play an active and leading role in addressing the burning issue of youth unemployment, as well as the revival of the Presidential Youth Working Group, which requires a resuscitated African National Congress Youth League. The Lekgotla further proposed that the National Youth Service Program be considered post-matric so as to instill further discipline in young people and combat crime. The NEC also noted the rise of the cases related to mental health and agreed to pay greater attention to mental health and widespread manifestation of depression in our society. In strengthening the fight against crime and corruption, the Lekgotla noted progress in key areas in the security sector. This includes the additional recruitment of 10,000 police officers and the strengthening of key institutions such as the NPA. Lekgotla called for an integrated program which will ensure that South Africa is a crime-free society by 2030. Key actions will include assessing and strengthening community policing forums, increasing the ratio of personnel to citizens, addressing cybersecurity, strengthening the intelligence services, bringing to an end the political assassinations, addressing stock theft, strengthening witness protection, and improving the management of migration, especially as it relates to Zamazamas. Lekgotla also echoed the January 8 statement in relation to the fight against gender-based violence and femicide, and called for consideration to be placed on having a specialized unit. In processing the National Conference resolutions, the NEC agreed to receive written submission from NEC members and employees to further strengthen our resolutions. In the meantime, the NEC elected into office the National Working Committee, which is seized with the day-to-day operations of the organization. The National Working Committee elected from the membership of the NEC is 20 individuals and is gender balanced. 50-50 gender parity principle of the ANC also find expression in this particular working committee. Mamuluko Kubai, Barbara Krisi, Enoch Kotongwani, Tina Jumat, Zizi Kodwa, Ronald Lamola, David Mahlobo, Pemi Machotina, Tandi Modise, Sibongile Pesani, Stella Ndabeni Abrams, Mtumiseni Ntuli, Enji Mutecha, Senzo Mkunu, Mondli Gungubele, Mtutuzi Manana, Pekin Konyeni, Tembing Kadimeni, Noneba Mhlauli, and Kumbuzo Nchabeni. The NEC and the Lekgotla noted progress recorded in some areas of the National Democratic Revolution, but also considered that the ANC has been gradually losing the trust of the people due to social distance, greed, and corruption. Therefore, NEC agreed to conduct an assessment or a diagnostic report on the functioning of the previous NEC so as to intensify and address challenges that must be avoided in order to build on its strengths and achievement. In taking this forward, the SGO will constitute a team which will also consider all matters raised in the political overview, including origins and nature of factionalism. The assessment will also inform the ANC election strategy session, which will soon be hosted by the National Executive Committee. In promoting unity and renewal, the ANC will also implement a concerted program to eradicate factionalism, which is detailed in the 2023 year plan. Key to implementing the program is the convening and monitoring and evaluation machinery from branch up to national, which machinery will require a clear plan from branches, every subcommittee, every caucus, all public representatives, and all structures at all levels. In strengthening the ANC machinery, the NEC adopted a compliance matrix and paid attention to the deployment of NEC members to provinces, committees, and standing committees, which will be informed by capabilities and key policies such as the DDM. In implementing the DDM in the organization, the Lekgotla encouraged branches to develop annual programs of action. Furthermore, in deploying NEC members to committees and standing committees, the SGO will give consideration to deploying former NEC members. In further strengthening the NEC in line with Rule 12.3.7 of the ANC Constitution, which provides that the NEC shall be constituted by, among others, not more than 5 additional members that the NEC may co-opt at any time during its term of office in order to provide for a balanced representation that reflects the true character of the South African people. The NEC co-opted 4 comrades, Mapaseka, commonly known as Steve Litzike, Gerard Korenhoff, Fauzia Pierre, and Alvin Bottas. In strengthening the ANC headquarters, the NEC delegated the newly elected NWC to further deploy NEC members to HQ as and when the need arises. It further finalized and allocated roles to the 2 DSGs. Nomvula Mukonyani will be responsible for elections, campaigns, international relations, stakeholder engagement, and human resource. DSG Marupeni Ramkhopa will be responsible for monitoring, evaluation, and governance. The Secretary General, in addition to his other duties, will be responsible for organizing membership and all other matters related to deployments. The NEC also noted that any organization worthy of future should plan generational succession, ensuring that there is a transfer of experience and intergenerational exchange of innovative solutions to intractable challenges. Therefore, the ANC will strengthen its deployment strategy to include the introduction of succession planning. In this regard, the ANC will also strengthen and intensify its political education, making it compulsory for all ANC public representatives to go through the political school. The ANC will also implement a program through the OR Tambo School to improve the quality of leadership and membership. To complement this, the training and induction manuals of the ANC will be improved. The NEC also noted and expressed its disdain on the ongoing attacks in terms of its leadership and expressed its confidence in the national chairperson in his capacity as the Minister of Mineral and Energy. And we expressed our support to the national chairperson because there is no policy deviation that has not been articulated by the national chairperson of the ANC. The NEC further thanked Comrade Pule Mabi for the sterling work he has undertaken as the national spokesperson and agreed to facilitate for further strengthening of the ANC communications and the rebuilding of public trust. Consequently, the NEC appointed Comrade Mahlengi Pengu Mutsiri as its national spokesperson. Comrade Mahlengi will be supported by Comrade Hope Papo and Vukani Tinto. We have distributed their bios. They have been collectively charged with strengthening the Department of Information and Publicity. We have gone back to this approach, which we implemented in the early 90s, of spokespersons, and the national spokesperson being Comrade Mahlengi Pengu and supported by the 2 comrades. Of course, our approach to communication means everyone can speak, but one person at a time. We are not going to allow Casey and Jojo type of a situation where everybody, when there is a crisis, they speak their mind. We don't have time for independence in the ANC. People must understand when the ANC speaks, what does it say? Unambiguous, and understand the position of the ANC. So one message, many voices will be our approach, but we will minimize the anarchy you have seen in the past years, where NEC members speak on one item with different voices and not even reinforcing the message of the African National Congress. As part of due organizational governance in accordance with acceptable organizational protocols, the NEC adopted a delegation of authority authorizing the SG and the TSGs to institute and defend legal action by or against the African National Congress. Special focus was also given to the effect of coalition governments, particularly in local government, to which end the NEC adopted and sharpened the ideologically based principles and the strategic framework for local government coalitions to better manage coalitions. This will be enhanced by the soon to be adopted monitoring and evaluation framework and capabilities. This will also be enhanced by building a stronger alliance with the South African Communist Party, Congress of South African Trade Unions, and the South African National Civic Organization, which is critical to the advancement of the National Democratic Revolution. Consequently, the Lekgotla called for the urgent convening of the proposed Alliance Economic and Energy Summit. The Lekgotla also noted that in addressing its challenges, South Africa should and can build on global solidarity. To that end, the Lekgotla encouraged ANC members and leaders to better capacitate themselves in understanding global dynamics. In building a just and equitable world, the NEC acknowledged the increasing significance that BRICS partnership is playing in the global political economy, and therefore agreed that BRICS must be expanded, among others, to enhance its role as a counter-hegemonic bloc. South Africa must clearly define its desired objectives and strengthen the new development bank. The Lekgotla also directed government to work closer with BRICS nations to solve the energy crisis. Consequently, given that South Africa will this year host the BRICS summit, Lekgotla requested that the summit pay special attention to energy security. Further, Lekgotla called on the Global North to implement more just financing mechanisms outside loans to enable Global South to generate, manage, and distribute energy. The Lekgotla requested the Secretary General's office to develop a strategic partnership and solidarity positions which will, among others, strengthen relations with former liberation movements, strengthen South-to-South relations, enhance development solutions with a focus on economic and cultural diplomacy, and strengthening the role of South Africa as the AU infrastructure champion. Lekgotla also encouraged government to advocate for the ending of sanctions in Zimbabwe, turn around the situation in Eswatini, and the removal of Morocco as a member of the African Union. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Secretary General, for that statement. I now turn to members of the media, and I'm looking for hands. So we'll have the first round and the second round, and depending on the number of people who want to speak, maybe the third round. May I start? Oh, okay. From yourself there, over there. I'll come down here. Then next to you, Goge, Maseko, and my colleague over there. Shall we start there, and then we'll go and have the second round. Please proceed.
Afternoon, Mr. Mbalula and Mrs. Mugonyane. My name is Thando Maeko from Business Day. So the ANC has recommended that a state of disaster be implemented over the energy crisis. Just what tools does the state of disaster give the government to implement? And then you mentioned that the finance minister said that reprioritization of the budget is required in order to save ESCOM and to mitigate against the load shedding crisis. can we expect any announcements from the finance minister in his budget in February or from the president in his State of the Nation address? And also, did the finance minister mention any numbers? I mean, how much of the government's budget would have to be reprioritized, from which government departments or state agencies would be taken? And how would this affect the fiscal framework? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tando, please proceed.
Salmona, my name is Lekgotla. I'm with Bloomberg News. A couple of questions. The first one, the SG mentioned that there needs to be a reconfiguration with the aims towards better aligning energy security. Just what does that look like in government? The second question, also on reconfiguration, at the beginning of his term, President Cyril Ramaphosa spoke of the reconfiguration of the so less departments, maybe 2 or 3 DGs for the bigger departments. Is that still on the cards? Perhaps last question then linked to SOEs and the resolution on their return to line departments. When discussing the feasibility of that resolution, is it something that is feasible? Is it something that is possible to be done in the next reshuffle or change that we'll be seeing in government in the coming weeks? Thank you.
So is
yes, SOEs going back to the land.
what are you asking?
Return.
I'm asking if that return is something that's feasible within this next, in the next few weeks. Or if you can just offer any timelines on the thinking around that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Sanibonani, Sipamandla Goke wakwa eNCA. You seem to be pushing this line of ending load shedding by the end of the year, but Eskom has said that will not be the case. Where do you get that from? Is it practically possible? What are you basing it on? Because you appear to be convinced that by the end of the year load shedding will be gone, but that will not be the case. Number 2, you say crime-free South Africa by 2030, but South Africans are under siege now. Don't you think this violent crime is out of control and it's a national crisis in this country? What do you do in the short to medium term to deal with violent crime? Why do it for 2030?
Thank you very much. Asego?
Samkele Masego from the SABC. Just a few questions from my colleague Natasha Piri to the Secretary General, Mr. Mbalula. The question is, don't you think coalitions should be regulated in the light of what happened in the city of Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni and Mkondo? Then secondly, on the leagues, what is the deadline for the leagues to go to their Congress as the Youth League and also the conference of the ANC Women's League? Then lastly, from my side, on the issues pertaining to the national chairperson, what informs the attack on your national chairperson and also Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, Gwede Mantashe? Is it informed purely on South Africa's energy trajectory of the just transition and him being perceived as someone who's practically lobbying for coal power ships and also maintaining that South Africa should continue with the base load of coal? On the issues pertaining to Eskom, are you continuing with the conference resolution of moving the power utility from the Department of Public Enterprises and to the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources? And in the conversations that you are having on the reconfiguration of cabinet, is there a proposal beforehand to separate energy and mineral resources and have a separate minister purely focused on energy? And what is the future of the Department of Public Enterprises? There was a conference resolution by the African National Congress to do away with that particular ministry and for all entities under that ministry to return, for instance, to take back Transnet, back to PRASA, take back SAA, back to transport. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
It's Ndaye Zonetonje from Power FM News. My colleagues have largely covered me on the reconfiguration of government. On the issue of the 42 priority municipalities, what informed that? That's the first question. And the second question on that, would you please just give an indication of those priority municipalities, if they do include metros, and if so, which ones are those? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I want to stop at this point, SG and DSG, and ask that we interact with this first round of questions. So I will invite you to take questions, wide-ranging questions, some related to internal organizational reconfiguration, others related to our external work, others related to, I think, the key pain point for the people of South Africa, the energy crisis. But I will leave it to the two of you to handle that. Thank you. Good morning, journalists and leaders of the ANC and the South African community. SG, I'm going to respond to what informed the Lekgotla around the recommendation that government should consider declaring a state of disaster. What has been very helpful in the ANC is that there has been interactions that happened prior to the Lekgotla, including the symposium that was convened by the ANC, hosted by the SG with different experts. There has also been, at the Lekgotla itself, contributions that were made by external participants, including representatives of civil society, as well as the feedback that came from organized local government and our own ANC branches. Remember, it is only the ANC that has got over 4,000 branches across the length and breadth of our country. There is feedback about the impact and the effect of load shedding. And parallel to that, there's been a lot of work that government has been involved in. What has been a reality was that there is a call across the country that there has to be an extraordinary approach. So based on the reality, both socially and economically in our country, the ANC resolved therefore that government must consider declaring a state of disaster so that government can do extraordinary interventions beyond what exists in terms of the regulatory environment, but also in terms of pulling everybody together, as we have done during COVID, as we have done during the 2010 World Cup, to an extent where we even had a piece of legislation that was passed just to make sure that we roll out infrastructure, we mobilize civil society, we release resources. So the experience and the best teacher has been our experience of the 2010 around the infrastructure and the resource mobilization, where finance will then look around. And Minister Kotongwana, Comrade Kotongwana in the ANC did not actually put anything. The ANC has put these recommendations. There will be a government Lekgotla that would look at these issues, and there would have to be reprioritization in government so that then we're able to respond to the needs of our communities, but also to save the situation that have also exacerbated the situation related to crime, related to loss of jobs, as well as to the decline of our economy, and as well as many other issues that have been affected, especially by the levels of load shedding that the country has been faced with. So we have been informed by the material condition. We have also worked together with various stakeholders in this regard. So it's not going to be a reckless approach. It is informed by information, by evidence, but also by an intention to make sure that we go an extra mile and do the extraordinary. The issue that you have raised, Koge, about the time frames, ideally we should all be saying, let's do away with load shedding now. The intention is to ensure that we do not have a protracted load shedding. We must make sure that everybody plays his or her part, starting with us as communities,
saving, paying for the services that are rendered, and government providing the necessary resources, and all of us working in an integrated manner. Samkele, the issue about the coalitions, yes, you are right. There is a need to look at that, and I take it that you read that paragraph where the SG raised the issues related to a proper intervention and a perspective about coalitions. Remember, our intention is not about going into coalitions, but reality is, with the maturity of democracy, we must also embrace multi-party democracy that goes beyond just party representation, but collaboration and going into relationships. Not only learning from Johannesburg, we've also learned from the Port Elizabeth experiences, the Nelson Mandela Bay, and many other places. So the SG is coordinating that approach, and we're looking at it not only for municipalities, even looking at scenarios as to what may happen going to the national elections, and that will be informed by our own national election strategy. The leagues are ready, and the NEC actually emphasized the fact that all the task teams have been established to take the leagues to conference. The ANC Youth League is ready. It needs to be supported with resources for it to convene. And this is work that has overlapped from the previous NEC of the ANC. There is a roadmap that the ANC Women's League has developed. They have already put their own timeframes related to their audit processes. It would actually be within the 3 months that the NEC has agreed. A meeting with the ANC Women's League and the Women's League and the Youth League, together with the Veterans League, SG, and that includes the Veterans League, will take place to then go into an activity plan of ensuring that they go to conference. The Youth League has also gone to provincial conferences that demonstrate progress that has been made. The 42 municipalities, there is a report on the state of local government that has been done by COPTA. It's a public document. It includes, of course, metros, and that document indicates what are the issues, and the ANC has looked at that report, and it is a scientific-based document that guides us on where to go. Where the problems have to do with us in the ANC, we will have to act. Where problems have to do with what came out of the Lekgotla also around the Systems Act and the funding model of local government, we will also have to look at that. And as we're preparing also the review of our 30 years of democracy, we will also map the 42 municipalities against the future of some of these municipalities, because some of them are not necessarily viable. They hardly have a revenue base. And some of them, there has been a movement because of the economic development in some parts that they have become ghost cities. With the decline of the mining towns and cities, some of those municipalities have been hard hit. So it is based on the scientific assessment that has been done by the organized local government, SALGA, as well as a document that is a public document of the Department and Traditional Affairs. SG have left
we are going to be hit by load shedding. I want this press conference to be caught up with load shedding, because we will not be in a position to communicate. Just to add on the issues, state of disaster will help us to move with speed. the target of getting this done and dusted by end of the year can even move faster. If we've got all hands on deck, we address issues of procurement quite faster, and then we mobilize the resources where they are needed for intervention, particularly when it comes to maintenance. And then you've got people with capacity, engineering and all of that, to advise the command center. We will agree that for a very, very long time, we have been told a story that is really elusive around doing away and dealing with load shedding. The reports sometimes are contradictory, and we can't speak like as if we are experts. We didn't become experts during COVID. We had a team of doctors under health department who were telling and educating us about the virus. Not just a group of politicians coming together and define themselves as virologists. We left it to them. So our response to COVID was scientifically driven. So our response to dealing with load shedding must be scientifically driven and informed by practitioners. Because somebody can be good as a lawyer, but is not good as an engineer. As a lawyer, you've got good expertise of dismissing people at work. You know how to do it. But you will rely on other people when it comes to engineering capacity. So you need a combination of all of this. So that's what we have directed the government to do in response to this. Our confidence that this will be done away is informed by that. Agency, focus through the command that meets almost weekly and examine what is happening. The tap and the Leipzig way, ad hoc approach, is not helping us. Denial that we are in a crisis is not helpful. So shutdowns and all of that, they are not helpful. You'll shut down what is left, and people will go back and be impoverished. You know, South Africans' response to a crisis can't be a shutdown. Yes, people have got a right to protest and do everything else, but to call for people to shut down, stopping them from going to work. Look at the anarchy we had in this country. June, July riots. What they cost the country. People flattened shops in KwaZulu-Natal. More than 300 people died. It crippled the economy. It crippled the economy. So our approach is that any form of anarchy must be thwarted off, but leaders must act responsibly. And without dictating to what must happen. We were marched upon here by some political party. They did not even reach my office. I was waiting for them the whole day. They didn't come. So, fine and good, they are raising their voices about what is happening. We shouldn't be arrogant and deny the fact that we have a problem and we have a crisis. So we are responding to this crisis in that way. And the president and the team in government have been given a clear instruction by the ANC. We don't want ad hoc arrangement. Total focus and kill this load shedding. That is our approach. By killing, I mean we do away with it. Load shedding, that is our objective. We don't want management that is unending. We want to do away with load shedding right away. And among others, it will include a lot of options. Assisting municipalities, either to be on the grid or off the grid. This is what this disaster is going to help us. This disaster will help us with regulations and control. That we pass regulations that enable other departments to work together in doing away with load shedding. No, we didn't deal with the figures in terms of reprioritization, but we've got a proof now that we've got over 200 billion that has been shared off from the fiscus year after year unspent. And this is what we need to deal with when we go back to our different ministries in government and ensure that there is much better and improved expenditure. Reconfiguration, state of disaster, Bloomberg, government will be reconfigured. It depends when and how this reconfiguration will be implemented. Conference have given us a clear mandate, for instance, that ESCOM must go to energy. The president is working on those issues. He's been working on those issues even before the national conference. It's a discussion that was postponed when government was constituted. But he always had this view that he's doing work in terms of reconfiguring government. It has now become a resolution. I think we're better off now to know what must go where to ensure alignment. That includes the SOEs as well. Will SAA be good under public enterprise, or will it be good under transport? You deal with FOPs. You deal with national interests in terms of those FOPs and what you give to other airlines and so on in terms of, and yet this big airline is somewhere, not at transport. So configuration will help us with that. Some point SAA was at Treasury, of course, because it was years of state capture. That is why it was taken to Treasury, but now it came back to public enterprise. So you might say it must go back to transport. What do people who deal with business have to do with transport? You align these things. Transnet, you're dealing with transport issues, but Transnet is not under transport. You talk about freight and logistics and moving goods from road to rail. You develop policy, but you don't manage the implementation of Transnet in terms of executing that policy. So we're looking at that, those issues, and conference have said we must deal with those issues. So whether some of these elements will be implemented now, it's a question that government must answer on their own, and they also plan in the long term. But I know presidency has been dealing with these issues for quite some time. We want to end load shedding. GOG. We have given that mandate that load shedding must end. 2, crime in this country can't be dealt with by government alone. We need a social compact. Thugs invade a street in Gqeberha, kill more than 7 people in the township. Senzo Meiwa get killed somewhere in the township. We can't find the criminals till today. How come it happened like that? That thugs can just gun-toted kill in our communities and there is no response. We are waiting for the police to come and help. Fine and good, the police must help, but if we had vigilance of street committees and all of that, those thugs with their guns would have been caught by the community. They came, killed 7 people in Gqeberha. Thugs get here and Pekikele has arrested them in Soweto. Kill people who are having good time in a tavern, boo, boo, dead. It is time that society must come together. street committees. Where we live, we should know who is invading us, stealing and killing among us. Police must be strengthened. And we must commend the work the police are doing in resolving some of the crimes. But the painful part of it is that we can't bring back the loved ones. They are lost. I know Vusi and Andile, you know. They got killed this past weekend, dead. They said they saw 2 boys or whatever jumping. And Andile went to ask, hey, what do you want? They shot him, point blank. And then they went to shoot others because they had a birthday celebration of Vusi. And they shot all other people in the yard. Who others just came, having a drink. They then shot and then ran away and disappeared. Now, community is terrified. Lekgotla has responded, he has gone down, and then is giving a good report that already they are getting good feedback in terms of investigations. In Umkhonto, a week ago, I went there with, as the ANC, our councillors dead. And we are happy now arrests are happening, but we don't want just arrest, we want successful conviction in the court of law. But police are doing a great job. So, as the ANC, this is what we're going to do. We're going to mobilize our structures to intensify the establishment of street committees. If you have a street committee, safety committee in the street, you would know who is invading you to promote criminality. You would know. You guard yourself. You look after women at night and all of that to fight gender-based violence. You should know in your street that next door here, there is a problem. The house is always closed. They open it at night. When I was in the police, we found laboratories of crime there in Soweto, where people were producing drugs, drugs and all of that. If you see those things in the neighborhood, tell the police. Become a whistleblower and all of that. So crime is threatening to be a crisis. We can only win that if we build a social contract with communities to fight criminality in the areas where we live. Some on the coalitions, they should be regulated. That's what you say. Look, our approach to coalitions, we work with like-minded. We won't work with the DA or the Freedom Front Plus. Like-minded sometimes is a moving target because we find ourselves in coalitions with other partners who from time to time, based on their political interests, change, tune and walk away. And sometimes they don't come with us. In everything we have done thus far in the coalitions, we have never worked with the right wing and the conservative. The DA and others, we have not worked with them in these coalitions. We have stuck our ground, working with the middle ground people, independents and all of that in the coalitions we have formed. And somebody was saying, why in Joburg you give mayorship to a party with 3 people? What do you do when you are not in power? What society must understand is that coalitions don't work. I'm going to be marching in Pretoria one of these days. The biggest march you have never seen. Because Pretoria, Tshwane, has come down to something you can't define. And who's in charge there? Is the DA and Freedom Front. Where do they deliver in Tshwane? In the constituencies. The townships are gone. Since Kutla was mayor there, Wi-Fi is gone. So their coalition there, led by the DA, has collapsed. The mayorship, look at potholes in Johannesburg. I've never seen so many potholes in this city. You blame it on Department of Transport, when the problem is the problem of the metro, which is led by the DA. We used to have an agency here that closes potholes. There were no potholes in Joburg. With all the sins we have had, as the ANC, when we governed, we never had potholes in Joburg. I'm called by a friend of mine. He got into a puncture in Joburg. He says, he then swear at me. You see, fix the potholes. The person who's not fixing the potholes here in Johannesburg. Tell her that they must invest in JRA. They must close potholes in Joburg. Many potholes. I'm not saying that the ANC governs well in municipalities. We don't. Conflicts. Yes, we don't. 42 municipalities we have identified. We are going down there to fix, starting with Mangaung. There's nothing good that is coming out of that Mangaung in terms of governance. And the ANC have long admitted that. We're going to intervene there. And there are many of these municipalities you asked, where are they located and so on. There are many in the country. The list is there. So we're going to be moving, as I'm seated here, Madibe, in Northwest. They are restructuring a municipality there for absolutely no reason. ANC is in charge there. The mayor is doing like as if he's destabilizing. Restructuring the NMs and all that. It's like a fashion. For no reason. You destabilize a municipality where you are elected. You then destabilize yourselves. So by intervention, we mean in this 42, me and Nomvola and others, yet to the house, the center is going to hold. But the report is alagum. How did you resolve that thing? No, it's a at the end. I must report. Yeah, when we are so we've got to deal with these municipalities and so on. Mantashe is characterized as a fossil dinosaur. And our approach is mixed energy. Right? I want to repeat this. All of us, we agree on low carbon emissions throughout the world. We agree on the just transition. The question before us is, how just is the transition? So here in South Africa, we can't do away with our coal because of renewables. The two reinforce each other. That's where we're going. We need a clean environment and so on. So when the minister says, no, you can't do away with coal, we need a balanced approach, and then you say, no, this one is a fossil dinosaur, you are killing the debate by labeling. You are not engaging. We are not defending Mantashe from the point of him being engaged by society on the issue of energy. ANC ministers must learn to be engaged and to be persuaded and to listen to everybody when you are a government. But when in society you then start to label people, you are killing the national debate. You are no longer debating. And we think there is something wrong there. Do we have to move? ESCOM is our decision. We'll move to energy. It is part of this reconfiguration. Part of the things that we agreed we must do, we have not done, is the unbundling of ESCOM. We have not done that. As part of our reforms, we have not done that. We need to address that. And then lastly, before we catch load shedding, the 42 priority municipalities, do they include metros? I've answered that. They do include some of the metros. We have a problem there in Buffalo City where voted almost 100%. but we have challenges there. So we are going to go there. We have problems as we speak in Ogumkijima, in the Eastern Cape. We need to go close to that situation and address those problems. This is what the Lekgotla have resolved. We must create here in the Revolutionary House Service Delivery Command Center, so that when we are seated here, we can see the country. Where are the problems? Why do you implement people who are underqualified as Section 57 managers? And you are ANC, you have been voted. Just that question. Why do you do that? Niolanda nje umto underqualified ngobunes bugo nimfakela. Nithi no magara no maspala. When you don't see delivery, you ask yourself questions why. The barometer we are going to introduce, we will be sending it to provinces to respond to that with immediate effect. And where we see that there is no cogent explanation why you have employed people who are underqualified, we will intervene and give you instruction to change. There is a Motlante report we must still implement, where some of the public representatives at local government were elected but were contested. So that's what we're going to do to deal with some of these particular matters. So it's our work is cut out in terms of what we need to do from now onwards. Thank you.
Guys, please, you must allow us to ask questions.
Wait, no, I need to proceed to this side of the House. Yes. We have a few minutes, and I know how anxious some people are starting to become this side of the House. So we're going to keep it crisp before we suffer from our own challenges. Lokani, and then I've got my brother over here, and then my sister over there.
Thank you very much.
Very quickly.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. We shall. Ma'am, under COVID-19, the declaration of a state of emergency, we knew then that, or state of disaster, we knew then that it was COVID-19. Then we had floods in April, I think it was last year. In the KZN, we knew then obviously that the declaration of the state of disaster was caused by those floods. Yeah. So who do we then hold accountable and responsible for the declaration of disaster, state of disaster when it comes to this country's energy issue? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lukanya. My brother over there.
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Lunga from The Citizen. Okay. I just wanted to find out, following the resignation of 2 MPs, can we expect the Deputy President of the ANC to be part of those who replace them in Parliament? And also, SG, can you maybe just confirm if indeed the Deputy President, David Mabuza, has resigned from his position? Thank you.
Very crisp, to the point. Let's move on to the next.
Just Karine du Plessis from Reuters. I have a question on Morocco. Will the ANC's position on Morocco, will that be pushed at the AU by South Africa at the AU summit in 2 weeks for Morocco to be to the ANC? Is progress? And my third question, which might have been partially answered, is the EFF is calling for President Cyril Ramaphosa to resign. I think they'll have this in their march. Can the ANC work with a party like this in a coalition? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That will be the last hand. I see that the colleagues who still wish to comment. We are keen to finish this before the hour of 12 o'clock. So I'm going to ask that you allow us for that, even if it's one-on-one engagements, to pursue some of your matters that you want to pursue. I'm going to ask our national officials, the SG, as well as the DSG, to respond. It seems to me, though, SG and DSG, that our statement is comprehensive enough in terms of explaining our reputation promise and demonstrating that we've been hard at work, self-reflecting, self-introspecting, and now circumspecting and now seeking to communicate. And with that, may I ask SG, that we do this, and I will stand at 3 minutes to 12 o'clock to make sure that we're done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I've been answering the issue of the Deputy President and MPs, and then I'm answering it again that redeployment of people is our task as the ANC headquarters from time to time to change people. We change people from province to national for various reasons. And when you are redeployed in the pool of the cadreship deployed, you can be anything. Cabinet, you can be so there is no guarantee for anything. And some of these deployments are informed by various reasons. Engagement, agreements are made to move this direction. So the Deputy President has not resigned. The Deputy President has not made it in the last conference. He's a disciplined cadre of the movement. He's not a chaotic person. He's well organized. He's a man of integrity. So he's not a comrade who's suffering from a crisis of, hey, I'm not elected and what next? He's at the service of the movement. There is a Deputy President who's now been elected, who, if the Deputy President resigns, the President can then appoint him or any other member to become a Deputy President. But ideally, it is the Deputy President who is the Deputy President of the ANC who becomes the Deputy President of the country. When that happens, the President will announce it, that it has happened. So, Deputy President has not resigned. When he resigns, and then we fill that vacancy and all of that, we will let you know. Are we dealing with matters related to governance, deployment? Yes, we are. We come from a conference. We've got to reflect on those issues, including possibility to reshuffle or whatever reason, because you've got vacancies in government and so on. So the President, when he has made up his mind on these issues, he will bring them to the ANC and then the alliance too. And then he will make up his mind and make a public announcement on that. At the present moment, the Deputy President has not resigned. Are these issues not considered? They are considered. I've explained to colleagues from time to time. But I understand the media anxiety. They want to lead with a story that says I predicted well that Mbalula will be Deputy President of the country. You may not know. So you're competing about that. We've been telling you that when such happens, we will come back to you and brief you. And Khatato even said that I gave this a deadline of February. I said ideally by February, all these issues must have been dealt with. We came from the Lekgotla, we're going to a government Lekgotla, we go to State of the Nation next week. So if we want to reshuffle and all of that, ideally by February, all of those issues must have happened so that there is stability. And then we move forward just like that. And then the Zondo report, all of those outstanding issues will still be considered by the new executive committee of the ANC to process any matter arising from there that need to be processed. Morocco, our position is clear. we will campaign for Western Sahara's self-determination in solidarity, and that Morocco, what they are doing, they must know we're not on their side. And there's no way that an oppressor can be part of an august body like the African Union. That is why apartheid was isolated. It was not part of the United Nations and many other forums. Why should Morocco be part of AU when they've oppressed people of Western Sahara? We will campaign and work in solidarity with Western Sahara for the self-determination of the people of Western Sahara. EFF calls for President to resign. We've been there before, so there is no reason for President to resign. So it's not a matter that we will take to heart. We know that the EFF is raising this for political mileage. If they don't shut the country down and promote anarchy, their relevance is gone. So to get attention of people, they must shut the country down, they must call for taxis not to go to work, then they are relevant. You won't forget about them. But can they just be a civil organization that does things properly? They won't. With all tools at their disposal, like marching and raise your voices and all of that, why do you promote anarchy when you can march, raise your voice and do all of that? Why do you want to stop people from going to work on that day? Interfere on the rights of others which are enshrined in the Constitution, that tomorrow I must not come from Luthuli House because EFF has closed the roads. Am I against what they are fighting for and their right to march? No, we're not, including calling for the president to resign, which is a gimmick, you know, we've listened to over time. They can do that. They've got all the right to do that. But when you threaten violence, and say that buses must close the streets, taxis must do all of those, you are threatening violence in a democratic country. Why do you threaten violence? There was no war here. DA marched. They had their march and everything. There was no war. The Youth League was here. Nothing. Nobody was destabilized from going to work. Not from going to work and all of that, close the streets. That did not happen. So we are, yes, in a loose partnership with the EFF on various methods. We engage with them. To us, EFF is not equal to the DA. So we work with them. And sometimes, you know, they don't work with us. They work with the DA to deal with us, you see. So we've been through that path before. We work with parties that want to work with us for good of the nation and for service delivery for our people. Thank you.